I don't know why, but I only feel motivated to film when it's incredibly hot, and boy, it's toasty today, but we got to make some progress. I've been doing a little bit of stuff in the garage. As you might be able to tell, I cleared up a little bit of room. I was able to sell the L28 that came out of the 280Z. I sold it for a pretty decent amount. The guy didn't actually want the automatic transmission, so I have that. It's going to be basically given out for free, maybe make a few bucks, but it's not really worth anything. I was able to sell the G35 automatic transmission, and of course I still got the 315hr and the JK transmission to go in the Z. And we're making progress. It's real slow right now. I pulled the car out into the driveway the other day and kind of soaped everything down, gave it a pressure wash, just kind of clean things up, get a good idea of how much damage there actually is. And when I went to go 3D scan a lot of the frame rails and stuff, the grease and debris and dirt that was attached to the frame rails kind of made it hard to get a good solid scan. So after I got it cleaned up, I went back and 3D scanned the entire engine bay and as much as I can with the trans tunnel all the way down, because I really need to make sure that I have everything in the engine bay through the firewall and then the correct location for that shifter hole, so I can hopefully get everything mounted, lined up, so the shifter can come up through that hole. Now, I know it's not going to work with the factory shift bracket here, so it's going to have to get unbolted. It's just 4 bolts, and then there's a bunch of companies that make shifter relocation kits that basically shorten this shaft. So I think it gets cut, and then you just kind of use this pivot here, and then this whole kind of cut for the shifter kind of gets relocated right here. And to my measurements that I can kind of guesstimate and line up in my 3D model, GK Tech's shifter relocation kit should put the shifter just dead center of the shift hole, which I'm really thrilled about. It looks awesome, and it saves me a lot of work. So that's the route I'm gonna go. I'm gonna get that on order, and then now I am working on some engine mounts. I could take you guys upstairs and show you the 3D model, kind of what I'm working with right now. I was going to attach them down here, maybe cut these off and go off the factory cross rail. Then I started looking at other pictures of what other people have done, and honestly, they've already sorted out a lot of the difficulties. I'm going to do it myself. However, I'm going to use their design for inspiration. And Z Fever out of Florida had the best version I like, so I'm going to kind of mimic what he has going on. And basically, it's just angle iron that gets mounted, welded to the top of the frame rails, and then a crossbar. And he had a round tube, which I'm going to actually try and do rectangular tubing, probably like a 1 inch by 2 inch wide, and then it will kind of dip down below the center of the oil pan. And then from there, I'm going to have basically 2 sheet steel plate mounts that kind of bolt to the side of the engine that kind of mimic these, and then use some kind of urethane energy suspension urethane mounts, and then probably something very similar towards the rear for the transmission mount. It's still a work in progress. However, it is coming along. It looks like everything should clear pretty good. I have it clearing the steering shaft. It will not clear the front cross member. I am going to have to notch it. Basically, it's inevitable with the VQ35 swap. This will have to be cleared for the oil pan. Not too big of a deal. I get that cut in and then box back up, and we should be looking pretty good. A lot of work to get this thing in there. Of course, I chose definitely one of the hardest motors to put in a 280Z. Honestly, it would have been a lot less work, a lot less effort to just throw an LS in here. And don't get me wrong, it's a fantastic motor, and depending on the use case for the car, LS1 would have been the best choice. However, I'm not drifting the car, I'm not racing, I'm not drag racing. I just want a cruiser that matches the character of the car, and to me, a VQ just beat out everything else. So that's the way I'm going. And like I said, I've already sold the L28 and I have a VQ, so it's no other options at this point. Dang, it's hot here though. Start a little pile back here, which is out of the view of the neighbors, so they can't see it, but got the exhaust off. It actually has a Catco catalytic converter I might try and reuse. The hood, I actually kind of want to source a 240 or 260 Z hood without the hood vents. I think it just looks a little bit cleaner. The skid plates are no longer going to work. AC lines are no longer going to work. So most of the stuff's going to be scrap. But oh man, I got a lot of stuff going on. Fingers crossed I can get the VQ35 low enough to actually close the hood. However, I'm worried about the clearance here to this bracket. I don't think this is going to be able to stay. I might have to rig something else up and shorten this, or cut it kind of flush and then box it back in just to gain a little bit of room, because I think it's going to end up hitting right along the backside of the intake manifold. And I could have moved it out further, but it's a delicate balance to get it, you know, as far back as I can without going too much further in the cross member. So it's a really delicate balance of give and take here, and I think I got it as best I can. If I have to notch that, cut it back, use hood pins, whatever, we'll figure it out. I think let's go upstairs and check out kind of the 3D model, see what I got going on. I don't think there's a whole lot else in the garage right now, but I definitely got a bunch of stuff in on the computer. All right, so I don't like doing a whole lot of design videos. I know I get requests for them. However, I'm a terrible teacher, and I have a lot of bad habits that I don't really want to teach other people. I'm not professionally trained, so I've developed a lot of additive manufacturing habits that are not really applicable to regular design stuff. So sorry if I don't do a whole lot of design videos, but we can go ahead and just talk about what I have done. And as you can see, I got a pretty good scan. I originally scanned the Vq35hr and was missing a lot of data. It wasn't quite a complete enough scan for me to use. So as you can see, I got the back side. I have a little lost data here on the crank, which is fine. This is my new improved scan. It's pretty solid, pretty good. Pretty happy with it. Everything's pretty high resolution, and I do have a higher resolution scan. However, it's nearly impossible to work with in Fusion 360. And again, I don't really need like the rear main seal or anything like that. I did a high quality 3D scan of the transmission. This is again like a low poly count version, plenty good for what I need. And when I originally scanned the motor, I had the headers on, but it blocked the mounting location for the factory motor mounts. So I went ahead and scanned those in separately. It gives me a really good idea, representation of where they're going to run, if they're going to work or not, which they're not. This flange is going to end up hitting the drive, the firewall. So, you know, the primaries look good, except when it hits this collector, maybe I can modify it, cut it, and angle it down more, or just make my own headers. Not a big deal though. If we hide that, we can see the new 3D scan engine bay, and it is pretty complete. Obviously, there are some gaps, there are some holes here. However, I think I have everything that I should need. 3D scanners are not very good at picking up details like through holes and stuff like that. So through the battery tray, underneath stuff is kind of missing a lot of the data, but it's not too big of a deal. Don't really need it. However, I basically was climbing underneath the car to get the trans tunnel. And just as far as I could kind of reach in from the engine bay side. But as you can see, I do have that hole for the shifter. And then after a bunch of manipulation, whoops, there we go. I've kind of located it here, put it where I think it's going to make sense. It looks a little bit high here, but if you look along the front side, you can see that kind of hood line on the cowl is a little bit taller. So I think we're clear. I don't think we're going to have any issues hitting hood. If we do, we'll notch the hood. I'm not too concerned about it. And you kind of get an idea of where it hits that front cross member. It looks like it's not a ton. I'm going to probably take this whole lip off and see if I can get away with that. It might be hitting over here too. So I might, no, that's just a hose. So I think we just got to like really cut back this back edge, box it in, re-weld it up. Not too big of a deal. I'll have to do the same thing over here in the trans tunnel. The factory brackets for the original transmission kind of get in the way. So I'll have to cut all this out. It should be good to go there. It doesn't look like I'm going to have to actually widen the trans tunnel at all, which is good. Hopefully this room is here. It's hard to tell until we kind of go to test fit it. But as you can see, that leaves a ton of room here between what will eventually be a radiator and then the front of the motor. Really pushes the motor back, and of course that makes it effectively a mid front engine. or front mid-engine car, which is pretty cool. So we can go ahead and let's hide the engine bay, or let's actually hide this way. So this is kind of what I've got so far for the mounts. Like I said, it's basically angle iron. It's dropping through here a little bit. It's a better representation over here, and of course this is going to get welded in place. So a little discrepancy on the alignment in the CAD is not a big deal. So basically like a angle iron, 1/4 inch plate, and then that 1 inch by 2 inch rectangular tube. Hopefully I can get this bent. I'll have to outsource that. However, the rest I've made as plate steel that is all slotted, so it will basically self-line, and then I can just weld up all the seams. And then I just kind of have a placeholder here for the urethane mount. I did order some from Energy Suspension. I'll probably have to redesign a little bit once I get those in place, and kind of make a digital model for those. And then we can go ahead and put the motor in. You can hide this and see how those mount up. I think it'll work pretty good. It clears the oil pan, clears the headers. I think the heat shield might, it gets really close, but again, I could bend this out of the way or just remove the heat shield. It's definitely a luxury to have a heat shield and, you know, swap like this. I got some notching here on this cross member. Yeah, and everything with being notched, it should be pretty easy to assemble. The alignment can only really go one way. And then go bring that back. And then since I have that in place, I have decided to slowly start working on some other stuff. So I got a little strut bar action I'm working on. Obviously it's not finished, but probably get these made out of like billet aluminum. And then I haven't decided if I can source the extrusion here and then bend it. That'd be cool. If not, I wouldn't mind using the crossbar from like a Cusco bar, and then just mocking up the end plates or cutting this and then welding on some new eyelets or something like that to get this fixed and mounted up. And then been kind of working on some custom intake tubing, or how I'm going to run the intake to kind of get it back and away from the headers. I don't want all the stagnant heat back here. We do have these openings through this front core support, so I want to utilize those to get some fresh air through. But I think it's coming along. I'm still waiting on some parts. Like I said, I ordered that GK Tech shifter relocation kit, and from what I can see, I know this looks really bad right now. This needs to be aligned a little bit higher, a little bit lower. We're okay though. From what I can tell, it looks like that shifter should shorten it up almost exactly right where I need it, which will be just a huge time savings. I didn't want to have to redesign a shifter, a relocation, so knowing they've already made one just leaves me a lot of headache. And we should be in business pretty soon, hopefully. I'm hoping to get that in the car fairly soon. I need to design the transmission mount and then finalize some stuff on the engine mount, and then gonna probably send it off to like send, cut, send, and then we should be in business. All right, so this is gonna be pretty much a wrap. That's all I got right now today. Next video, I'm hoping to get this cross member cut, notched, and then boxed back in. We probably won't box it back in and weld it up until I get the engine test fitted in there and make sure it actually clears. I'd hate to re-weld it just to have to cut it again. So next episode, we'll probably cut it, maybe remove some other stuff out of the engine bay, and then hopefully be sending off those files to send, cut, send here in the near future to get everything made. I am gonna have to outsource a few additional parts, just like that, the cross tube. I'm hoping to get that as a solid one-piece part. I don't have a tube bender that can bend that. Hopefully I can find somebody that can. If not, I can do it out of, you know, a couple cut piece, weld up. It just won't be as pretty, but it will work. So that's where we're at today. Thank you guys for watching. If you made it this far, make sure to hit like, subscribe, so you can keep up with all the updates and things happening on my 280Z. And thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you on the next one.